January the 13th, 1842. A lone horseman collapses at the gates of Jalalabad. His uniform is shredded. His hands are frozen black. He can barely speak. The British garrison rushes out to meet him, expecting the vanguard of a 16,000-strong army. There is no army. There is only him, Dr. William Brydon, assistant surgeon, the sole survivor of one of the most catastrophic military retreats in human history. Somewhere behind him, in the ice and the blood and the mountain passes of Afghanistan, an entire army had ceased to exist. Not defeated in battle, not captured, erased. The question is not how a man survives when 16,000 die. The question is, what kind of decisions, what kind of arrogance, what kind of blindness leads 16,000 people to walk willingly into their own graves? This is that story. To understand how this happened, you need to understand what Britain thought it was doing in Afghanistan in the first place. It is the late 1830s. The British Empire controls India, the crown jewel of its global dominion. But India has a northern border, and beyond that border lies Afghanistan. And beyond Afghanistan lies Russia. This is the era of the Great Game. Two empires, Britain and Russia, circling each other like wolves, each convinced the other is about to strike. Britain looks at Afghanistan and sees a buffer state, a wall, a strategic necessity. There is one problem. Afghanistan already has a ruler. His name is Dost Muhammad Khan. He is competent, he is popular, his people follow him. Britain decides he is the wrong kind of ruler. So in 1839, the British East India Company sends an army of 16,500 soldiers and camp followers into Afghanistan to remove Dost Muhammad and replace him with a puppet, Shah Shuja, a man so despised by his own people that he needed a foreign army just to sit on his throne. The mission is sold as quick and clean, in and out, a show of force. Instead, the British army settles into Kabul. Months pass, then a year, then 2 years. The soldiers bring their families, they set up polo fields, they act like they own the place. They do not own the place. Afghanistan is watching, and Afghanistan is getting angry. The clock is ticking, winter is coming, and 16,000 people are camped in a valley surrounded by mountains they do not control, commanded by a general too sick, too old, and too afraid to make a single decisive move. His name is Major General William Elphinstone, and he is about to make the worst decision in British military history. Elphinstone was 60 years old, crippled by gout. His last real battle was Waterloo in 1815. A different world, a different kind of war. He had not seen real combat in over 2 decades, and it showed in every decision he made and every decision he failed to make. The uprising began in November 1841. Alexander Burnes, British political officer, dangerously overconfident, was warned the night before that the city was about to explode. He dismissed the warning. The next morning, a mob stormed his residence. He was cut down in the street before he finished his first sentence. Within hours, Afghan fighters seized the British supply forts outside the cantonment. Food, ammunition, winter stores, gone in a single morning. The occupying force had become a besieged one before Elphinstone had finished reading the first report on his desk. Elphinstone's response? He called a meeting, then another. Then he wrote a letter to Akbar Khan, son of the deposed Dost Muhammad, the most dangerous man in Afghanistan, asking for terms. Every day of inaction cost lives. Every night, Afghan snipers picked off sentries. The food ran low. The temperature dropped. Snow fell on the mountains, ringing the valley. Then came the offer. Akbar Khan promised safe passage to Jalalabad, 90 miles away through the mountain passes. Every soldier, every family, every camp follower, it was almost certainly a trap. Elphinstone accepted anyway. On the 6th of January, 1842, 16,500 people marched out of the cantonment gates and into the snow. They carried 6 days of rations. The march typically took 3 days. Nothing about what followed would be typical. The column moved too slowly. 16,000 people stretched across 5 miles of road. No tents, left behind to save weight. On the first night, men and women huddled in open snow, burning anything they could find. By morning, dozens were dead from exposure, not from enemy fire, from cold. The Afghans watched from the ridge lines, patient, unhurried. They knew what the British did not. Every mile ahead was a killing ground. They had sent riders to every tribal chief along the route. The message was simple: the British are coming. They are weak. They are slow. They are yours. The first serious attack came at the Khord Kabul Pass, a river gorge barely 30 feet wide, with sheer rock walls rising hundreds of feet on either side. The column moved through in single file. There was no room to deploy, no room to return fire. The Afghans opened fire from above. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. In 2 hours, 1,500 people died, and they were still less than 15 miles from Kabul. Akbar Khan appeared that evening under a flag of truce. He expressed regret. He proposed a new arrangement. British officers and their families should accept his personal protection. Travel separately from the main column. It was a transparent maneuver. Separating the officers from their men would destroy whatever remained of command structure. The soldiers would be leaderless. The officers would be hostages. Elphinstone agreed. The officers were separated. Their men watched them go. And in that moment, something broke in the column that would not be repaired. The soldiers understood, at a level below conscious thought, that the people responsible for their lives had just been taken away. Whatever happened next, they were on their own. By the 11th of January, the army had stopped being an army. It was a freezing, starving, bleeding mob. Unit cohesion had dissolved. Officers had lost control. Afghan sepoys deserted in hundreds. The soldiers who remained were marching on frost-bitten feet, leaving blood prints in the snow behind them. Then came Yugduluk, a narrow pass barricaded with thorn bush and timber built across the road in the night. The survivors hid it in the dark. Men threw themselves at the thorn bush with bare hands. The thorns opened their palms to the bone. Afghan fire came from 3 directions simultaneously. There was no cover, no formation, only the barricade and the bodies of the men who had tried before you. A handful broke through. Of 16,500 who had left Kabul, roughly 250 made it past Jugduluk alive. 250. The rest were somewhere behind them, in the passes, in the snow, in the frozen river, at the bottom of the Khord Kabul Gorge. They staggered toward Gandamak. 20 officers and 45 soldiers of the 44th Regiment of Foot made their final stand on a small hill in the snow, 1.5 boxes of ammunition between them, thousands of Afghans surrounding them. The Afghans offered terms. Surrender your weapons and you will live. They refused. They fought until the ammunition ran out, then with bayonets, then with rifle butts, then with fists. They died on that hill, every one of them. Captain Thomas Suter, wrapped the regimental colors around his body beneath his coat, unwilling to let them be taken as a trophy. The Afghans who captured him assumed a man dressed so elaborately must be worth a ransom. He was the only one who walked off that hill alive. From Gandamak, 12 officers on horseback made a final ride for Jalalabad. They were hunted across 16 miles of open ground. One by one they fell, until there was only one horse left moving. The garrison at Jalalabad had been playing a bugle call every hour for 6 days, a signal to anyone still alive on the road. General Sale had ordered it personally, on the hour, every hour, day and night. We are here. If anyone is still out there, we are here. For 6 days, the landscape said nothing back. Then on the 13th of January, a sentry pointed at the road. Something was moving? Far out. Too small to identify. One horse, one rider, moving at a walk because neither had anything left. The horse's head was down. The rider was upright in the saddle, barely. His coat was in fragments. His hands on the reins were white with frostbite. The gates opened. Men ran out onto the road. They caught Brydon as he slid from the saddle. Someone pressed water into his hands. Someone wrapped him in a coat. The garrison gathered around him in a silence that had a particular quality. Not the silence of shock, but the silence of people standing at the edge of something too large to immediately process. Someone asked him, "Where is the army?" He looked up. "I am the army. 16,500 people. One man." The garrison stood in silence, unable to process the mathematics of what they were looking at. A young officer sat down that evening to write a letter home. He wrote 3 drafts. He threw away the first 2. The third ended mid-sentence. He put down the pen and did not pick it up again for 2 days. Lady Elizabeth Butler painted the moment 27 years later. She called it remnants of an army. Brydon on his exhausted horse, the road empty in every direction, the walls of Jalalabad barely visible in the distance. It became one of the most famous paintings in Victorian Britain, not because it celebrated victory, because it did not. Elphinstone died in Afghan captivity 4 months later. Gout, exhaustion, the particular despair of a man who knows exactly what he has done and cannot unknow it. Buried quietly, no ceremony. The kind of burial given not to a hero and not quite to a villain, but to a mistake. Britain sent another army that same year. General Pollock forced the Khyber Pass, reached Kabul in September, burned the Great Bazaar, centuries old, one of the finest in Central Asia, to the ground as punishment. Then the army turned around and marched back to India. Afghanistan remained Afghanistan. Brydon lived until 1873. He married, he had children. He returned to military service and survived the siege of Lucknow in 1857. Another siege, another desperate defense, another chapter in the long story of empire meeting resistance it had not adequately imagined. He rarely spoke about Afghanistan. There was nothing adequate to say. He knew something that empires take much longer to learn, that you can march an army into a country and still not own it. That certainty, the absolute confidence of people who have never seriously imagined being wrong, is not a strategy. It is a weapon pointed at yourself. The mountains do not care who you are. The passes do not open for flags or certainty. Afghanistan does not lose. It waits, it absorbs, and eventually it returns to exactly what it was before you arrived. The army is gone. The empire that sent it is gone. The mountains remain.